Colin, deep in thought, reflecting on the bitter reality of his current situation. He truly believed that this would be an easy assignment. No, to be completely precise, it was a trivial, degrading mission that he never wanted to accept in the first place. For someone of his stature, the representative knight of the prestigious House Philos, to be ordered to simply play the part of a mere bandit was an absolute insult. Yet, despite the deep humiliation, he couldn't refuse. It all traced back to a single duel, a devastating moment where there was simply no room for excuses following that overwhelming, crushing defeat. Returning to the harsh reality of the battlefield as he faces off against Vlad, Colin reminds himself why he needs to leave an even stronger, more terrifying impression here today. He determines to execute this mission better than anyone else possibly could, if it means restoring his ruined standing and reclaiming his lost honor. He doesn't care if it costs tens or even hundreds of lives. He has crawled all the way to this godforsaken place, drenched in dishonorable blood, yet a single question plagues his mind as he wonders why a mere northern peasant is blocking his path once again. Brutally furious, Colin grits his teeth, vowing to Vlad that he will kill him without fail and present his severed head to his lord. The two warriors stand face to face, the tension suffocating, as Vlad responds with a chilling calm, stating that it is nice to hear. Colin fails to grasp the meaning behind those words and demands to know what he means. Vlad merely continues to provoke him, looking down on him with an air of absolute superiority, asking if that doesn't just mean his head is worth that much now. Internally, Colin is struck by a sudden wave of shock, realizing that Vlad's aura has completely changed. Vlad then turns the question back on him, asking how much Colin's own head is worth. Appalled, Colin barks back, asking what he just said. But Vlad simply drops into a fluid combat stance, explaining that he needs to know so he can measure exactly how much he will be worth after he kills him. In that exact moment, Vlad releases his true, overwhelming power. Meanwhile, on the other side of the chaotic battlefield, Colin's men are still burning alive from the ruthless tactics deployed earlier. Stefan takes command, shouting orders to his troops, telling them that if the enemy so much as twitches, they should put a couple of arrows through them, emphasizing that not a single soldier should leave this place alive. His archers instantly obey, relentlessly raining down a barrage of arrows upon Colin's remaining forces. Stefan then turns his attention to the militia, barking at them to move faster, asking what they are doing, and commanding them to hurry up and pour water on the palisade, warning that if the fire spreads any further, it will spiral completely out of control. The militia rushes forward, carrying heavy containers filled to the brim with water. By this time, the devastating crossfire has taken its toll, and every single one of Colin's men lies dead. Stefan's subordinate approaches, reporting that it is finally over, and that Colin is the last man standing. Stefan, however, shakes his head, stating that this is only the beginning. He warns his men that if by any horrible chance, Sir Vlad is defeated, this entire village will be completely wiped out before the day ends. Back at the center of the conflict, Vlad and Colin lock eyes in an intense, suffocating gaze. Colin realizes with a sinking feeling that Vlad's confidence is not a bluff. He wonders how a mere peasant could have attained such a deep, profound world of martial comprehension in an incredibly short amount of time. Even so, he forces himself to believe that nothing will change. With a roar, he hurls his entire weight and power directly at Vlad, but Vlad parries the ferocious blow effortlessly, showing absolutely no signs of struggle or strain. Colin rationalizes the shock, thinking that even if there is no limit to the world Vlad has manifested, the massive gap in their innate physical strength simply cannot be bridged. Relying on sheer brute force, Colin manages to push back, creating a brief pocket of distance between them before launching a devastating downward strike aimed directly at Vlad's head. Yet again, Vlad blocks the massive blade without any trouble. Swiftly breaking the lock, Vlad redirects the momentum, sending Colin's heavy strike crashing uselessly into the dirt. Colin is left reeling, internally questioning how his opponent is continuously blocking these full-force attacks. He wonders if Vlad has coated not just his sword and aura, but his entire arm as well. Seizing the opening, Vlad prepares a fierce downward strike of his own. Just in the nick of time, Colin manages to bring his gigantic sword forward to parry the devastating blow. Desperate to regain the psychological upper hand, Colin yells at Vlad, claiming that no matter what kind of tricks he pulls, they are nothing but cheap parlor tricks that will ultimately shatter before true, unyielding power. In response, Vlad smoothly rotates his body, building immense torque to charge his next strike, and unleashes it with all his might against Colin's blade. The impact is so violent that it forces Colin backward, leaving him utterly speechless. Vlad looks down on him with a cold, superior gaze, asking if that sound is familiar, or rather, if it must be a deeply nostalgic sound for him. Enraged by the blatant mockery, Colin screams a curse, calling him a son of A and charges forward driven by pure, unbridled rage. Vlad, utilizing his heightened perception, observes his enemy calmly, noting that he finally sees the secret to Colin's robust strength. It all stems from his firmly planted legs. Colin drives forward with a heavy frontal assault, but Vlad moves at an almost blinding speed, closing the distance instantly. He deflects the incoming blade by hair's breadth and delivers a devastating, precise elbow straight to Colin's stomach. The impact is staggering. Colin feels the full weight of the blow crush his core, forcing him to spit fluid from his mouth. Before he can even recover his breath or process the pain, Vlad is already moving, channeling his momentum into another rapid strike that slashes Colin across the flank, drawing fresh blood. Colin desperately retreats, trying to put some distance between them to regroup, but Vlad refuses to give him a single second of breathing room. Closing the gap instantly, Vlad unleashes another strike. Though this time Colin manages to bring his weapon up just in time to parry. Cursing his luck internally, Colin realizes that the flow of Vlad's offense and defense is shifting constantly and unpredictably. It feels as though he is fighting someone who has flawlessly combined the combat styles of several entirely different knights. Vlad maintains his relentless assault, keeping Colin heavily on the defensive as the representative knight is forced to desperately parry blow after blow. Sparks fly as their weapons collide repeatedly, and when they finally freeze face to face with their blades tightly crossed, Vlad looks at him and asks where exactly he stands. Colin is completely bewildered by the question, but internally, Vlad contemplates his own journey, realizing that he truly wants to know where he ranks in this vast, endless world. The sheer intensity of their struggle causes the ground to erupt, kicking up a massive cloud of dust around them as Vlad fiercely demands an answer. Colin screams back, telling him to see it for himself, unleashing a heavy downward strike while declaring that this is the true strength he, Colin of House Philos, possesses. Instantly, a massive explosion reverberates through the clearing, and within the blinding veil of dust, only the violent, bright sparks of sword crashing against sword can be seen. A fierce, incredibly tight struggle unfolds within the haze as the two warriors push each other to the absolute limit. Colin swings a massive lateral strike, screaming at Vlad to die, but Vlad calmly tracks the blade, waiting until the absolute last possible second to react. In that final quiet moment, Vlad internally thanks Colin of House Philos. He then violently counters the lateral strike with an overwhelming blow of his own, pouring all his strength into pushing against Colin's sword. Colin strains every muscle, desperately trying to maintain his grip, but Vlad unleashes a final, shattering burst of power that forcefully drives Colin's sword backward, completely breaking his stance and ruining his equilibrium. Vlad delivers his final words, thanking him for giving his answer, and drives forward with a decisive frontal thrust. Completely defenseless, with his weapon thrown entirely out of position from Vlad's overwhelming parry, Colin realizes with a sinking heart that he has no escape. Vlad's frontal attack strikes true, piercing him straight in the chest, cementing Vlad as the absolute, undisputed victor of the duel. Standing amidst the silence of the aftermath, Vlad looks up toward the glowing moon, whispering to himself that he needs to go just a little further, believing that if he can climb just a little higher, he will finally be able to reach it. The perspective then shifts far away to a grand hall where a soldier approaches his superior to report that the long-awaited time has finally come. Sitting firmly in his chair, the superior looks up and inquires if the dragonborn duke has officially granted his permission. When the soldier confirms that the permission has indeed been given, the superior bursts into a loud, booming laugh, declaring that they can finally break the curse-like hunger that has plagued the West for so long. He immediately issues his commands, ordering Godin to go out and drag the wench who dares to call herself the gatekeeper of the North before him, while demanding that they also bring him the severed head of the brat who dared to steal his son's sword. At a military camp where several soldiers are stationed. Inside the commander's tent hangs a striking red flag bearing the emblem of a black dragon. Suddenly, the tense silence is shattered as the bishop shouts at someone demanding to know why they aren't advancing. He yells that it has already been 2 months since they raised the army, yet they have done nothing but watch quietly until now. The commander, however, remains completely silent. A smirk plays across his face as he casually stares at the wine swirling inside his goblet. Unfazed by the silence, the bishop presses on, warning Sir Radu that even God will not be pleased with such a careless attitude. Radu finally looks up and responds, assuring him that they will act. He explains that right now, they're simply biding their time and waiting for the perfect opportunity. The bishop shoots back that there was never a fixed deadline to begin with, demanding to know exactly when Radu plans to finally draw his sword. Radu's reply is cold and simple. He is waiting for his father, the Dragon Blood Duke, to give explicit permission. Furious, the bishop grits his teeth in silence. Internally, he realizes they have been played, thinking to himself that the power of an unleashed dragon is now looking down even on the Vatican. Suppressing his rage, he addresses Radu aloud, urging him not to mix human intentions with God's absolute will. Radu smoothly dismisses the concern, telling the bishop not to worry too much because it won't take long. Turning on his heel to leave, the bishop mutters that it had better not. He storms out of the tent, but as he walks away, he comes to a halt right in front of the Vatican's banner. Staring at it, he reflects bitterly that while it is a banner raised in God's name, this conflict is something that must ultimately be resolved with human swords. The dragon's forces have held the hilt of the sword from the very beginning, and as more time passes, the primary justification for raising this army will only fade away. Clenching his fist tightly, he continues his grim inner monologue, acknowledging that in the end, they were completely used to serve the Dragon Blood Duke's hidden agenda. He notes that the Duke never actually cared about destroying evil entities in the first place. His true objective was merely to drive a stake right into the heart of the North. With this strategic move, the Steel Duke and the Northern Alliance can no longer move carelessly. The bishop concludes his thoughts by wishing that the Dragon Blood Duke's decision does not come too late, before darkly correcting himself, hoping that it isn't already too late. The scene then shifts to the village chief, whom Vlad recently saved. The man is screaming at the top of his lungs, begging his people to come back right now. He demands to know where they think they are going, abandoning the village after he treated them so well all this time. Following their rescue the previous night by Vlad and the mercenaries, the villagers have collectively decided to pack up and leave the settlement behind. The village chief yells after them, asking if they honestly believe there will still be a place for them in this village when they eventually return. Hearing this, his former henchman, who used to obey his every command until just the other day, turns around and advises the chief to hurry up and pack his own bags, too, warning him that the war is already right on their doorstep. The young man points out that they only survived the night because the knight and the mercenaries happened to be there. With everyone else fleeing, he asks how they could possibly protect the village all by themselves, begging the chief to finally come to his senses. He reminds the older man that he needs to stay alive first if he ever wants to be a village chief or anything else again. However, the village chief remains completely furious and stubborn, screaming that he embodies this village, so there is no way he can ever leave it behind. The young man merely sighs and tells him to stay if he wants to. Among the fleeing crowd is Goth's family, including his mother, his sister, and her husband. His mother is weeping bitterly as they walk, and up on a nearby hill, Goth stands watching them, tears streaming down his face as well. Vlad catches sight of him and casually asks if he is crying. Goth quickly tries to hide his emotion, stammering out a denial, but Vlad smiles and points out that he definitely saw him crying. Goth deflects, muttering that he is just incredibly annoyed. He explains that they finally reunited after 6 long years, only to be forced to part ways once again because of this sudden war. Vlad then catches him off guard by telling him to go with them, too. Goth fails to understand his master's words, so Vlad clarifies that he is giving him a vacation, promising it will be a very long one. Shocked, Goth asks his boss if he is firing him, but Vlad barks back that he explicitly said it is a vacation, calling him a crazy idiot. Vlad tells him that the place he needs to be right now isn't by his side, but next to his family, instructing him to help them settle down safely and take proper care of them. Handing over a sum of money, Vlad tells him to use it to help them out, noting that whenever refugees gather in large groups, the price of everything skyrockets. Deeply moved by this unexpected generosity, Goth accepts the money. Vlad tells him to get moving, adding that when he sends a telegram later on, Goth had better come running back immediately. Thanking his boss enthusiastically, Goth promises they will absolutely meet again, vowing to wait for the telegram and begging Vlad to at least send updates. Vlad scoffs at the request, asking if he completely forgot that a single letter in a telegram costs an entire gold piece. Later, as they travel on horseback, Vlad glances over at the mercenaries riding alongside him and asks if they are truly planning on coming with him. Stefan gestures to himself and his crew, asking if Vlad can't see that they are already fully prepared for the journey. Vlad warns him that the journey will be much colder than he anticipates, but Stefan dismisses the warning, reasoning that summer is coming soon, so it can't possibly be that cold. Vlad simply nods, telling him he will understand once he experiences it firsthand as they ride towards Sora. Cut to a stark transition after Stefan's famous words, where the mercenary captain and his men are now violently shivering from the brutal cold. Stefan shatters that the weather changed this drastically just from crossing a single mountain. Vlad mocks him, asking if he is seriously complaining already when they haven't even officially entered the north yet. Stefan shivers and asks if they can't just stay put where they are, questioning if they truly need to settle down in the frozen north. He explains that things are completely chaotic everywhere right now. Because he risks his life for a living, he has to be incredibly careful when choosing an employer. He warns that soon, all sorts of opportunistic nobles and merchants will gather mercenaries just to exploit them cheaply and discard them, adding that if you blindly fall for a massive pouch of gold, you will likely end up dead. Vlad counters by asking if the North is really going to be any different. Stefan lets out a confident laugh and states he is certain it will be. When a surprised Vlad asks why he thinks so, Stefan explains that he relies on the sharp instincts he has forged through a lifetime of living by the sword. Vlad mutters how incredibly bland that answer is. Meanwhile, Stefan ponders to himself in silence, acknowledging that while the young knight's words are rough and his attitude is freezing, the way he treated his squire was remarkably warm. He notes it was the exact same story when dealing with him and his mercenary crew. Stefan muses that even if Vlad's personality were absolutely atrocious, he would still be entirely worth following. He has clearly confirmed the immense potential of this young knight. Vlad is highly skilled, possesses a decent moral character, and has the powerful backing of a great northern family. If his own future is this bright, Stefan realizes he needs to jump on board without a single moment of delay. Breaking his train of thought, Stefan turns to Vlad and asks if he will receive a new mission right away once they stop by Sora. Vlad replies that he isn't entirely sure, but internally, a darker thought crosses his mind. He admits to himself that honestly, he doesn't even know if he is legally allowed to return, knowing that without Lord Joseph's formal summons, he is nothing more than an exile. Snapping back to reality, Vlad questions why Stefan is suddenly so curious about his personal business anyway. Stefan playfully nudges him, asking why he has to be so cold, and reminding him that their connection is far from ordinary. He suggests that once they hit Sora, they could grab a drink together, but Vlad sharply commands him to be silent. He has detected a sound, and looking back, he notices a massive cloud of dust rising in the distance. Vlad grimly announces that someone is coming. Instantly, the mercenaries drop into a defensive stance ahead of Vlad, raising their shields and drawing their swords. A group of riders is galloping toward them at breakneck speed. Piercing through the haze, Stefan confirms that he sees them, estimating their numbers to be around 20 horsemen. Vlad steers his horse to the front, ordering the mercenaries to stand their ground and not make a single reckless move until he gives the command. As he analyzes the incoming threat, he observes that these riders never even attempted to conceal their approach. They ride with utter confidence, as though they have absolutely nothing to hide. Vlad realizes these are people in ordinary mercenary company could never hope to stop. More than anything, the overwhelming nature of their presence feels deeply unsettling. His inner voice warns him that his instincts are screaming one thing clear as day. These people are dangerous.